how to be profitable in 2024.
Marketing has really changed.
That there is a path to a career within our practices.
Change your website geared more towards them.
The multi-generational communication conflicts.
People aren't coming to you because you're an in-network provider. They're coming to you because they want a beautiful smile.
This is truly what's on the mind of orthodontists.
You know, having that high level of service.
This day and age, it's all about differentiating yourself.
So happy to be here.
Hey, Dr. Alyssa, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great. Well, hey, so we're just going to get right into it because we got a lot of people listening that are just, 15 minutes. That's what we're trying to give them. So, all right. In your opinion, what's on the mind of every orthodontist, or what's maybe on your mind that you don't have a solution for?
I think one of the things that's always on our mind is how are we going to continue to make sure new patients are calling? What will happen with the economy? What technologies are coming out that will result in driving costs and expenses up? So those things are always in the back of my head, just weighing a little bit on my shoulders, and things we don't necessarily talk about every day when we're in and out taking care of our patients and our teams. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, so I'm a huge proponent of the book, The Obstacle is the Way. Have you ever heard that book?
I love that book.
So as part of that, to find the solution, I think we have to address what these problems are as part of the solution. So as you think about that, how can practices lean into these obstacles, the ones you just mentioned, as part of finding the solution?
I think it's best as a practitioner to try to stay as positive as possible. You need to be aware of your surroundings, but if you are what your mind is, right? So if you think it's going to be a bad year, the economy's crashing, et cetera, then you may not be looking for solutions to say, hey, it's going to be rough. So there's extra things we're going to have to do to stand out or to differentiate ourselves and allow for us to make sure that we get to keep everyone on board and take care of your families for not only our existing patients, but our team members and their families. So I think being more of like a solutionist than a problemist, which is exactly what the obstacle of the way is about, right? Like the obstacle is the way. So your goal is not to turn around, but to figure out a way to get past the obstacle and then get to the end and the beautiful thing that lies ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So then in terms of the things that you shared that sometimes, you're kind of think about in terms of patient starts going down or the economy, things that maybe are in some ways a little out of your control. What are some specific things that you do to be kind of a solutionist towards those rather than focusing on the problem?
I'm a huge fan of, but if you take care of your patients, you take care of them well. That's right there, like internal marketing. And those people will always come back and help take care of you. So that's kind of one way, is just constantly making sure, even if we're starting to worry about our expenses going up, is not cutting corners or cutting costs in our patient care, regardless if our production happens to be down for a month. Another thing that I think you can do is just start adding things that help the patient experience. So convenience, flexibility, affordability, things that people like. So they want comfort. People like to have new technologies. People like to have what's different than others, and just kind of differentiating yourself in other ways, as well as just making sure that you're answering your phones and calling patients back, and the patients that do schedule, like welcoming them to the practice and getting them inside your practice.
So like the basics, right? Just make sure we have the basics, and kind of some of the other stuff will take care of itself, that kind of a thing.
I agree with that. I think that if you master the basics and you get that culture in your team that this is the way that we are, like we only accept excellence, then those things will come back in return.
I think that's really insightful and really important. Business owners, employees, sometimes people try to overcomplicate things. And so just to, go back to the basics and make sure we've got that covered. Well, so thank you for kind of setting up some of the things that you're thinking about and some ways that you're kind of combating those. Before we go on though, tell us a little bit about you, who you are. I know a lot of people probably know you, but where do you practice? Tell us a little bit about who you are.
I practice in a small town in Texas, or a few small towns in Texas, born and raised just in the same area. So initially started in Sherman, and then Gainesville and Bonham are more like satellites, but Gainesville and Sherman are both full-time offices, and we have one smaller practice that we only go to part-time. We used to be 3 doctors, and we're now 1, just from an efficiency and effectiveness of products that you can get now. Beautiful thing. We have a fantastic team and a fantastic community. So I feel very blessed, and we like to have fun, and I love football and go Pups. I can say that to you from Stillwater.
I know. Yeah, we share a love of the same university. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we just have small town and try to take care of each other and take care of our community because they take care of us.
Well, and I noticed, you guys do a great job on social of just showing how you're involved in the community and some different things that you do. I think it's really great. Well, so I do want to ask a question. This wasn't on the list of questions, but you mentioned that you went from 3 doctors to 1 doctor. Could you just explain or share some of what that was like from a systems perspective, or what are you doing? Because that seems like a really, if someone was hearing you say that, I think they could be overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, how did that work? What were the things that you had to give up? Where did you see efficiencies? I would love just for you to share that.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the senior doctors was slowing down and he moved. He's super amazing, but I admire him. He's practicing and he was 88 years old and completely competent and incredible orthodontist. And so had the opportunity to kind of continue his legacy. So that's one situation. And so I didn't know what I was going to walk into, to be honest, if it was going to be tweed mechanics or, or something modern, but he was very modern orthodontics and similar to myself, low extractions and repos and night ties, and just, really went hand in hand with a lot of what I believe in. So very easy transition as far as mentality goes. And that helped with the team. And then as far as systems go, we do a lot of training, and we've set up a leadership hierarchy in the practice. We've hired consultants to come in and professional coaches. We just really, really honed in on constant training and if something seems to be running a little less efficient than it probably could, or seems to be kind of cumbersome in nature, the team knows to speak up and not just gripe about it, but if we have something that may not be working well, bring a solution with it. And at least that's the start. And that helps all of us kind of wrap our heads around it, and we'll spend a day just trying to make something new. So one thing we've had to change a lot of is we spend a lot of our quote unquote non-patient days downtime just trying to improve what we can do for patients on patient days.
So you really empowered your team to highlight any inefficiencies or issues, and then you actually make a priority as the leader of the practice to find solutions and have them be part of finding those solutions.
Yes, we try. Team is great and the leadership team is great, and try to be very proactive about that. And things don't change overnight. There's some things that are quick fixes, right? And then there's some things that takes us a couple months to figure out. Yeah. But we have consistently and tear things apart to figure out how to build them better.
I think there's a lot of business owners, a lot of orthodontists out there that have their own practice that it's kind of I'm not hugely handy around the house, but a lot of that I find comes from there's a hesitancy to tear something apart because you're not sure if you're going to be able to put it back together the right way. And I think the same can be true with our businesses, where sometimes our hesitancy to actually fix a problem is that we're scared or hesitant that if we tear it apart, we're not going to be able to get it back even the way that it was, let alone better. And so there's some courage that you need there.
Yes. So it's definitely a mentality of we may have hurdles we overcome, and we may have issues that arise, and there may result in some things unanticipated. But I think that's what pushes us to be better is you learn from those mistakes, you learn from those little errors, and it helps you make it better. So we have definitely the mentality of if it can be better, let's try. And then if it's not, we just go back to what we were doing before. Everything we do, especially system-wise in orthodontics, is totally reversible. So if we, from a wire to the way you manage your phone calls to the way you show up on time, it doesn't matter. It's always reversible. So we're very blessed in that nature. And so it makes us less hesitant to try to go in and change things.
Yeah. Well, I think that says also a lot about you as a leader. I think that's great. Thank you for going down that little tangent. I know that wasn't I thought that would probably be something that the listeners would be able to get a lot out of. So where do you see that the industry or your practices are vulnerable?
I think we're vulnerable to innovation. So artificial intelligence, as things become more driven by technology, and bigger, larger companies can help our offices. If you aren't willing to engage and educate and invest in those, you will become more vulnerable. And I know that is hard, we're small business owners, and I'm not saying go grab every single technology that ever exists, but there will be a time when, and I think it's going to happen more rapidly than ever, where like just a 10-year period of not innovating your practice will make you feel 30, 40 years behind. I think we're going to be vulnerable to that. I think that we're going to have to spend a little more than ever before on things like that we put into our practices to help them feel modern, to help take better care of our patients, because we will be offered things that help us do that. But at the same time, it will probably also make our lifestyle more free and enjoyable and less physically demanding, potentially less emotionally and mentally demanding, because there's so much more to offer us with the innovations coming our way with technology and AI and things like that.
I love that. And one thing that I pulled out of what you were sharing was leaning into the companies that you work with. And I know from our perspective, some of the most successful practices that we work with really lean into not only our company, but the other companies that they work with as a true partner, and take full advantage of the education and the training and the onboarding and understanding like how the products can actually be fully leveraged. And I think so many practices miss out on that. And that is kind of what you're saying. Like there's some vulnerabilities there if you're not doing that, right?
Yes, I agree with that statement. And I agree that the days of hanging a shingle and people walking in is gone. It's been long gone for years and years, right? But now gone, in my opinion, or soon gone, are even the days of this is how I've done it since residency and I have a name and I'm a good orthodontist. I don't think that goes quite as far. I think you earn a lot through relationship building. I think you earn a lot through that human eye, personal touch. I don't think technology and AI, and I'm a huge fan of AI, it does not replace that. It's an addition to it, and it helps us. It helps our patients. So I think if you don't jump on the ability to lean into the companies that are investing in our profession for us, then and try to make those partnerships, then at some point you're vulnerable. Like there's not much left to have to be there.
I think that's a great point. And I think what's interesting is so many people view AI and technologies as a replacement instead of an enhancement, right? And I love that thought that you shared. So thank you for that. I think people will get a lot out of that. And if they start to actually think about what that means.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got a couple more questions, but kind of final as we start to wrap up here. In the vulnerabilities that you mentioned, where is your practice, or where do you see practices in general and the overall industry well positioned for success? And maybe kind of an add-on to that is, what are some things that you're doing very specifically to kind of create success in light of the vulnerabilities?
I think that we see success coming our way in the fact that the awareness of wanting beautiful straight teeth has skyrocketed due to these same large companies that have the means, other than, one little business owner, to make people aware. So it's more of a need. There's companies out there that have helped us make orthodontics a little bit more affordable by having flexible payment options. We're excelling at that right now. So we can provide the same quality care to someone for the same monthly payment as someone that's not even licensed to provide care.
Right.
And I also think that one area that we excel at that's very, very hard, or potentially very hard to replicate, or not really quite on the radar in the next few years, is the diagnosis and treatment plan. I mean, back to basics, right? Like take a very good diagnosis, a very good treatment plan, and treat each person individually. And that right now is what really sets apart us from failure. If we start failing at that, then anyone can do our job. And so use our education and our knowledge to then take all these innovations and products and combine the best of both. And it will be very hard to compete with a good orthodontist that's excelling at that.
I love that. I also think that's great that you mentioned kind of going back to focusing on some of the individual characteristics, desires, choices of the patient, because there's a lot of things out there that can help you do your job well. And not one alone is going to help you do it. You have to have multiple things if you're going to, treat a broad spectrum of the market. And so I think that's really insightful, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
All right. So a couple of questions. So one question that's, that I kind of want you to wrap up the things that we've talked about, because we want this to be like a 15-minute, easy to listen to, and then some practical takeaways. What are 1 to 3 I'm listening to this and tomorrow I could start implementing these? What are like 1 to 3 takeaways that you think would be important for people listening to this?
First and foremost, never forget that you're a student for life. So always, always, always invest in your education. And I mean, that's what has gotten you to the point of your title as an orthodontist and what will continue to help you take care of patients over the entirety of your career. And so be open and willing to learn. Things change faster than we do. So educate, educate, educate. I also think that another takeaway is a big one for me is treat others how you would want to be treated. So just because I do have the title orthodontist does not make me a better human than any other person that walks into my practice or that works for the practice. We do have to make sure we pay the bills. Our name's on the door. So there may be things that you're like, I want this done this way. This is like our minimum standard right now is excellence. And so if someone does not represent that, then they should not be a part of Alyssa Orthodontics. But that doesn't make them a lesser human. So I just always say like culture comes from the top down. And so if you're not happy with your culture or your practice, then see what you can add to life from yourself and get the right people in there under that breathe and live to the core values that you're trying to add life to. Number 3 is find ways to differentiate yourself. So it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be hard. We use everything from things that people would say are harder to put in your practice, but have amazing outcomes like dental monitoring. We use, in my opinion, some of the highest quality brackets on the market and aligners. So we're investing a lot there, but we use super simple things such as, we use WildSmiles and we offer that to our phase 1 patients and they just, their front 4 teeth have hearts or stars or Mickeys or whatever footballs they wish. And it's just little things, but those patients get excited. And as crazy as it sounds, like your team gets excited for them, right? Like instead of being like, okay, here's your braces, it's like, oh my goodness, your friends are going to love these flowers on your teeth. Or have you ever been to Disney if they get Mickeys? So it's just little touches that add a little bit of positivity throughout the day or something that that you're doing that's special that they wouldn't get elsewhere or that they may not otherwise have the opportunity to make the choice.
Yeah.
All choices.
Yeah, I love that. And I think all 3 of those are really great next steps that if everybody listening to this just did, 1 or 2 of those, I think they could make a huge impact just in their practice, just by taking 1 or 2 of those next steps. So thank you for sharing those. Okay. So as a final question, we're asking everybody this same question, and I'll set it up a little bit. You got no heads up on this. WildSmiles, and then my own personal belief, I'm really big into the power of story and this power that story can have in relationships and in your business. I think a big part of the story is also the empathy that you show to enter into someone else's story. And in light of story being a powerful thing, there are 2 elements to every story that make it really entertaining, really fun, really engaging. And that's a really good villain and a really good hero. So I would love it if you would share with us who or what is your favorite villain and who or what is your favorite hero.
So I have 2, my parents. And so those are my favorite heroes. I can't choose one over the other.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Like, I don't even know a villain because I don't watch TV. Probably like a Boomer Sooner. I'm just kidding.
Hey, there we go. I love it.
I have a lot of OU friends, but they'll love that.
For sure. We'll keep that in here at the final cut.
That's fine.
I love it. Well, thank you for taking the time. I know you're super busy. You've got a lot going on in your practice. You've got a lot going on with your team. And just the fact that you took a few minutes to sit down and share your thoughts with us, I know will be super enlightening and helpful to those that are listening. So thank you, Dr. Alyssa, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I hope somebody gets inspired by something I've said.
I'm sure they will.